Well, hey, today's topic is inspired by a brand new book I actually just really started reading last night and digging into even more today. But the concept is powerful, and I already am getting a lot of value out of it. And I wanted to kind of just share some initial thoughts and just kind of help you understand where this concept comes from and what the value could be for you with yourself, your team, your company, your family, where whatever aspect of your life. And it's based on a book gradually then Suddenly by Mark Batterson. And the subtitle is How to Dream Bigger, Decide Better, and Leave a Lasting Legacy. And this book, well, Mark Batterson's written many books, and he's one of my favorite authors. And it's one of those books that, sometimes you get the right book at the right time in your hands, and, somebody recommends something to you, or, I saw this coming out a few weeks ago, and I thought, you know what, I need to pre-order that. And I actually forgot about the fact that it was coming this week until just a few days ago when it said it had shipped. So the reality is this, that success is something that we want instantly. But the reality is success comes because of the gradual things we've done along the way. And then the results may feel like they're sudden, but they're really about the compounding interest over time that has happened by doing those activities. So just like, you look at financial investing and you invest a little bit at a time and, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years later, you can look and see how that growth of that investment has just multiplied many, many times over exponentially. The same is true with success. The same is true with leadership. And, it's very interesting how as leaders, we want instant success. I know I want instant success. I want, as soon as I have an idea, I want that idea to be successful, right? I want it to be done immediately. But the reality is that success comes incrementally and builds on one activity over another. Now, some things happen faster than others for sure. Don't get me wrong. Some things can be accomplished quickly, but when you really look at big dreams, big visions, big goals that you have, typically, most often, more often than not, it's going to be a series of steps taken over and over and over a period of time that leads you to your ultimate success. So it's that whole thing of an overnight success takes about 10 years to get there, right? Like he tells the story of Jim Carrey. I've heard this in other places as well, that I think it was in 1985 he went to the top of a hill every night and just dreamed and had a vision of being a successful actor. And he wrote himself a check that was dated 10 years later in 1995 for $10 million for acting services rendered. And it was that year, right before that 10-year mark hit, I think is when he got a $7 million contract for Dumb and Dumber. And then within a year, he got a $20 million contract for the cable guy. And so he had a vision in 1985 that wasn't realized until 1995. But what did he do between those years? Did he just sit there and dream? No, he kept doing the things he needed to do. He kept working on his comedy. He kept working on his craft. He kept implementing the things that he knew to do today in order to get there to his goal someday. And so when 1995 hits and he becomes this instant success, so to speak, because of his big contracts as an actor, it was a 10-year thing at least in the making. And in our businesses, in our lives, our families, whatever it may be, your success is really about compounding interest of the activities you've been doing up till now. They say that our current results are based on the activities and everything we've done up till now. So if you look ahead and say in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I want to accomplish something, well, then you need to realize that what you do starting today, moving forward, is going to result in whatever happens in those timeframes that you think about. So if you want exponential results, you're going to have to think differently, do different things than maybe you've been doing. This is why I love the book, The Science of Scaling by Dr. Benjamin Hardy, because he talks so much about when you have a seemingly impossible goal, you have to think differently. You have to form pathways thinking. And I'm really trying to explore that right now, that whole concept of pathways thinking of what is the path between my goal and where I am today. So it's visioning the future, but it's also working backwards and thinking, okay, what did I need to do to accomplish that goal? It's essentially saying I've accomplished that 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, whatever. what did I do to accomplish that? There's an exercise I learned years ago in my coaching training called remembering your future, and it was basically the same thing, but it was our minds don't differentiate between a dream and reality. So if you think you've done something in your mind, you've done it. Well, even though it hasn't physically manifested yet, you can sit there and say, well, I accomplished this goal by, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 2 months from now, whatever the time frame. And then you can start asking yourself, well, what did I do to achieve that goal? And you start mapping that out. That's to me what I'm understanding pathways thinking to be. And I'm really wanting to hone in on that and get better at that personally because I can see a vision, I can understand a vision, and I can actually, I'm really good at helping people. This is the challenge, right? I'm really good at helping people do this for themselves. It's just really hard to do it for yourself. So if you came to me and said, hey, Chris, I had this vision, I had this dream, I had this goal that I want to accomplish, one of my favorite things to do is sit down and whiteboard out and just talk through the different scenarios and ask you questions and help you dig through all the options and all the puzzle pieces on the table, so to speak, and figure out how can we put that puzzle together? What are the steps? What are the actions that you need to take? The problem is when you're trying to do this for yourself, it's very hard sometimes because we're too close to it. And so that's why we need that objective thinking partner, that person that can come alongside of us. And honestly, I've realized, and this isn't like a self-promoting thing, but it's a skill to be able to ask the right questions. It's something that I've had to learn over time of what are the right questions to ask people to help draw out the right answers that give them the next steps that they need to take. And so if you need that kind of help, I'd love to help you and just go to McClureCoaching.com and you can apply for a free strategy session on my website. And I'd love to have that conversation with you about kind of what is your goal and start to think about what is the next steps, what are the next steps you need to take, what are the resources you need, who are the people you need to be connected to, all the questions, all the things that we'll go through. But I bring that up just because this whole idea of gradually then suddenly is something that we're really bad at in our culture. We want instant results, right? We love the microwavable results that we can get in life. We love fast food. We love microwave ovens so that it can cook the food quickly and instead of taking an hour, it takes 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 2 minutes, right? We want instant results. We want instant gratification. And the reality is that the best things aren't microwaved. The best things are more like a crock pot that you are over time being developed over time, stacking one skill on top of another or one experience on top of another. One of the things he talks about early in the book that's really powerful to me is even thinking about generationally that what you're building on today was started by the generation before you and the generation before that and how far back we really have to go. And he tells some really interesting stories just through American history about one person that saved a billion lives through some food issues and crop work and development and research, but he didn't just start from a blank piece of paper. Somebody invested in him, and the person that invested in him and mentored him, somebody did that for that person, and so forth and so on as you track back. So the reality is we're all building on the shoulders of giants, as they say. And you are a giant for the next generation, for other people that are around you. Could be your employees, could be your family, could be somebody out in the community, whatever, but you are the product of your choices, your experiences, your education, and the people who have come before you. And that's why a lot of times, if we look at society and why we sit there and we can wonder, like, why is this person or why is this group of people struggling so much? Well, they're building on a foundation that led them there. And it's hard to break out of negative cycles, but it's also easy to take for granted when you're kind of handed everything, right? It's like when you look at celebrities that they didn't really work for or earn their success. They're like a second or third or fourth generation person that's received wealth without the effort. And so what happens? They kind of go off the rails many times. Many people fall into drug abuse and even mental health issues. They fall into crime and criminal activities. They struggle because they didn't have to earn their wealth. They didn't have to earn their success. It was handed to them. And the crazy thing is that most of the time, the people that built that years and generations before never would have wanted their future generations to struggle like they're doing. But the reality is when we're handed something, without doing the work and going through the valley of becoming, as I call it, then we struggle. It's that whole idea that if somebody wins the lottery, the statistics show that people just blow that money so quickly and find themselves in great trouble many times and wish they never had won in many cases because they weren't ready to handle that instant pile of cash. So gradually, then suddenly is actually not just a reality that we have to understand, but it's also good for us. And that's a hard truth to accept that my gradual growth leading to what seems like instant success is actually a better path forward. And so when you're thinking about business, when you're thinking about your team, when you're thinking about your family, being patient, staying the course, taking one step at a time, that is something that is so critical for us and our well-being, but it's so hard to stay disciplined and patient. Patience truly is a virtue, and it will be tested many, many times. And there's just been moments and seasons of my life, my business, where I'm like, why am I here? Why is this struggle happening? Why is this challenge happening? Why isn't there more movement right now the way that I had hoped or dreamed of or envisioned? And the reality is, I have to learn certain lessons in those moments that help me become ready for the success that will come down the road. But if I give up and say this is hard, I'm not going to do it anymore because it's hard and it's not working out and I don't see the results yet, then guess what? I'm forfeiting that future success. And so stay the course. Have a clear plan, have a clear vision, but recognize that it will take time, energy, effort, resources to get there. And when you do, that gradual day by day, moment by moment, what Mark Batterson even references this long obedience in the same direction, which is what a pastor had mentioned years previously in a book actually, was am I going to stay obedient to this vision? Am I going to stay obedient to God in this process of becoming who I need to be in order to accomplish the vision? When you can stay that course and be steadfast in that, then you can see amazing results down the road. But if you choose to say, you know what, I just want the short, quick fix, I want the quick answer, then guess what? There ends up being problems. It's the whole idea that anything that comes quickly can vanish quickly, but things that are truly lasting are built moment by moment, day by day, sometimes year by year, decade by decade. He talks a lot about history in his books. Mark Batterson does, and I learn a lot about history actually through his books that aren't about history directly, but he talked about even he's a pastor in Washington D.C. and he talks about the development of Washington D.C. hundreds of years ago now and how it was just this farmland and swamp and but somebody had a vision for where Capitol Hill would be. Somebody had a vision for how the city would be built. Somebody had a vision for how things would be run in that city, and that's true in every community. Somebody stepped into a plot of land somewhere in America or somewhere around the world and said, you know what, I see a vision of what this could be. He talks about Walt Disney several times in the book, even early on, about how, the reason Disney World exists, the reason Disneyland exists is because Walt had a vision and he even tells the story that he contacted a friend of his who was an artist on I think it was a Friday night or a Saturday morning and said, I need you to meet with me quickly because he had this dream, he had this vision, this idea of Disneyland. And his brother Roy was going to be meeting with investors on Monday. And he said, I don't want to just talk about what I have a vision for. I want them to be able to see it. And so this guy who's an artist friend of his spent like 42 hours with Walt, and Walt just talked out the vision of what he saw, and basically Disneyland almost became exactly what that original rendering looked like because he had such a clear vision. And then later when Disney World came about, he tells the story of how Walt had passed away before Disney World actually opened, and somebody said, and I've heard it told different ways, either to Roy, his brother, or to Walt's wife. It's a shame Walt couldn't see this happen, and they said, no, the reason that we're here today opening the park is because Walt already saw it. And so he talks about this idea of first creation and second creation. First creation is your imagination; it starts in your mind. Second creation is when it's physically created, and manifested, in the physical world. And so your success, my success, our goals being achieved, the dreams being achieved and accomplished, they start with the seed of an idea, but they take time to germinate. They take time to develop. We take time to develop to be able to actually accomplish that vision. And so today, if you're frustrated, if you're saying, you know what, Chris, I have a dream, I have a vision, I have a goal, I thought I'd be farther than I am already in my life or my business or in my job, my career, whatever it may be, my family, guess what? You're in a good space and a good club because we're all there in many, in most cases. Um, but most people give up. Most people give up because they think, well, it must have just been a whim. It wasn't really a serious vision or dream because it's taking longer than I thought. And here's the thing, I literally just this morning I had to kind of get my head right too, just about my own journey. And I took a walk around my neighborhood and I've done that before. And I do prayer walks where I'm just like trying to be quiet and listen and pray and just ask God, like, what is next? What do I need to focus on? What am I missing? What do I need to see differently? What are you wanting me to do next in this journey that I'm on? And, honestly, 10 years ago, I couldn't have dreamed about all the things I've been able to do over the course of these last 10 years. I had a vision. I haven't achieved that vision yet. I'm still working toward it. And that's what the hard part is 10 years have passed. And I can sit there and beat myself up and say, Chris, you should have been there already. You should have achieved that vision already. But what I've also had to learn through this journey of a decade is I've had to become and learn new things than I ever would have imagined. The thing, I thought I could just wave a magic wand kind of and have instant success. And what I've realized is every time I've learned something new, it's exposed something else that I need to learn and I need to grow in. And so embracing the journey, actually enjoying the journey is a huge part of success on the journey because honestly, who we're becoming is more important than what we accomplish because our character is being formed, our values are being shaped, our relationships are being deepened or extended or expanded. There's so many things that happen on the journey from where you are to your destination, but we want that instant leapfrog success that just doesn't produce the same kind of results. And so I do encourage you pick up this book gradually, then suddenly if you're really saying, you know what, I'm not getting the results I want fast enough. I know I'm there with you. I'm a type A personality. I have an idea, I have a vision, I have a dream, and I'm like, I want to get it done today. And God say, nope, Chris, hold on. There's things that have to happen along the way. There's a process to go through. And when you're not going through it properly, you basically hijack your ultimate success. So if Jim Carrey didn't do the things he needed to do from 1985 to 1995, he wouldn't have been able to accomplish his career goals like he was able to. Same is true for pretty much everything that we see physically in the world and the people that we look up to and read about in history and our mentors and the people that we admire. They'll all tell you there's a story, right? Like they may look like an overnight success, but it sometimes takes decades. Sometimes it takes, years or at least months to accomplish different goals. But the reality is it's critical to stay the journey, stay the course, keep moving forward one step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one action at a time, and let that compound over time so that you can truly end up with the results that you desire. So this may be one of those episodes you're like, oh my gosh, like it's kind of that reality check that we don't want to necessarily embrace or own or accept. But I think it's really critical for us to collectively say, you know what, yeah, this is the way forward. This is actually what happens is I've got to be consistent daily in my work, in my life, in my relationships and everything so that I can ultimately achieve the goals and the dreams I have. So once again, if you need help with this, if you want to sit down and basically map out whiteboard, your dream and say, I just don't know where to go from here. I thought I knew I did X, Y, and Z, but I don't know where I'm kind of stuck. I'm not sure where to go from here. Go to McClureCoaching.com, fill out the application form for the free strategy session so I have an idea of what you're working on and looking to accomplish. And then we'll schedule a time to sit down and talk together and see how I can help you. So take care, God bless, and we'll see you next time.